Welcome back, everybody. I'm so happy to be here once again, bringing you another incredible interview, and one I've been looking forward to. As I always say, I always look forward to my interviews, guys. You know that. I think I bring some great content here, especially with my guests that I bring on here. And it's something I enjoy doing for you guys, and I learned so much. So, this is another great one. This is going to be part two that I'm actually doing. And if you remember, just recently, I just posted an interview that I did with Angela Umelo, and we were going through a lot of different products and ingredients, and we were talking about just natural law health. Basically, it was a great conversation. So please go check out that interview before you watch this one, because this one is definitely building off of the first interview. So it's up there. Check it out, guys. It's a great one, and I had to get her back to do a part two, because what we're doing is actually going through ingredients on some of the products that I use and my wife uses. And I sent them the products to Angela, and she went through the ingredients, and it's really cool. She actually breaks down what's in all of the products that we're using, and it's kind of eye opening, or at least it was to me, of what some of these products have in them. And so it's very interesting. And I just hope that this interview will get you to kind of look at products different, as it has for me, the more that I speak with Angela. Now I find myself checking all the products in my house. I'm always reading what's in them, reading the ingredients, and then trying to figure out what half of the stuff is in these bottles, because I can't pronounce half of them. And I'm sure you guys find the same thing. It's all these big names. I don't know what they mean. So it's just really an interesting way, and I think important to see what we're putting on our skin, what we're washing our hair with, what we're eating. All of these things matter, and they accumulate over time in our bodies. And also, let's not forget, in the environment. So we're going to be covering all of this. I'm really excited to get Angela back. So let me get her on the screen. Welcome back, Angela. As you can tell, I'm excited once again to have you here.
Hi. I'm excited to be back, and thank you for taking the time to geek out with me on ingredients.
I find it fascinating. I tell some of my friends that what I'm talking about in this one, they're like, "You're going to be talking about ingredients," and I'm like, "This is fascinating to me." For the same reason I was just saying in the intro, that it fascinates me about what's in products. And since I've met you, I look at products in a different way. I'm reading the back of everything. As I was saying, I don't understand what half of these things are. I wish they would kind of simplify it and maybe give a simple explanation or whatever it is. I kind of find myself kind of searching now these words, trying to figure out what they are. So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
it can take a lot of time trying to decipher an ingredients list for sure.
Absolutely.
We'll touch on some very sort of maybe simple ways to sort of maybe cut to the chase so that we can spend more time on more important things, hopefully, right?
Well, yeah, and it's fascinating because I was shocked when I sent you the list of some of the products that we use, what's in them, because we did kind of talk a couple of weeks ago. We were kind of talking before we did this interview. We were kind of just going over the ingredient list, and I was kind of getting my bearings on what some of these things were, because some of the things that I sent you, I see all you got it all highlighted in yellow, and I'm like, there's a lot of things highlighted here. Like, how bad is this? But it's very interesting to me, and I hope everybody listening and watching is going to find this interesting and very educational. And I really do hope, guys, do this. Check the ingredients of the products you use every day after this, and really start looking at what is going on. Like, what are you putting? What is in what you're putting on your skin and on in your body? So this is going to be great. You got some slides for us, Angela. I'm excited. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, just to preempt the conversation, like,
Yep,
I
yep.
don't like scaremongering. I don't like people being like, oh no, like they feel like they've been poisoned by everything that's around them. Like that's very not empowering. Ultimately, the point is
Okay,
to feel more empowered to be able to make the decisions about what they want to use and weigh their own, cost hazard benefits, according to when they're buying a product, rather than sort of blindly following or on the contrary, just being completely scared of everything. I
good
come
point.
I prefer natural ingredients. I prefer natural holistic lifestyle. I would rather us use more natural holistic ingredients. They seem to be, in a very generalized sense, better for the environment, better for the skin. There are some limitations. There are some areas where we do need some synthetic materials. There are some areas where naturals do not perform as well as a synthetic counterpart would do. And then there's also derivatives of natural ingredients that we also need to use in order to improve some of the products and systems that we're working on. If you can use simple things, I always say just use it. You don't need to make your life complicated if your life
Okay.
is to be right. But if there are things that you need to improve on your skin, or if you have any specific needs and you do need to use a product, and just using a simple beeswax and bicarbonate
Hmm.
soda doesn't work for you, then sure, then we have to start getting into, okay, what is it you're trying to do? What new products do you need to incorporate? And how do you minimize your exposure to general chemicals in food,
Okay.
right? And I also would say people are often very scared of beauty products and cosmetics and think that, everybody's trying to poison them as well through the beauty products. But on aggregate, your beauty products are probably the lowest hanging fruit compared to your food, your medications, anything else you're putting directly into your body. We discussed a little bit in like the previous talk and in my presentation about, how much of the stuff actually goes into your skin. And, all of it is not going to go into your skin, right? So it is not a question of like, as soon as you put this product on your skin, now you're going to die. So no fear mongering, no panic, just education so you can be more empowered to make the right decisions according to your lifestyle.
That's perfectly said, Angela. Thank you. And yeah, that is a great point. Yeah, not to fearmonger people. And so I'm glad that you brought that up because it's when you see the ingredients, half of them, like I said, you can't pronounce, and you don't know what you're putting in. So it's great that we're breaking this down. And you bring up a great point too, because in the first interview, you were kind of saying like you like natural products and that, and we get into that in the first interview that we did. We kind of break down buzzwords of what people are used to hearing, like vegan and natural. What do these words actually mean when you're looking at a product? So it's so important, guys. Please check out the first interview that I did with Angela, and then come back to this one because this is really building on that. It's going to make a lot more sense if you watch the first one because it's kind of that's why it's part 2. So you got some great slides, Angela. I'm really looking forward to this and seeing the products that I'm using and what's actually in them. So do you want me to bring the slides up for you?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's dive right into the
Awesome.
first that you said.
All right. There we go. So you are in control.
All right. So the first one was the Gold Bond medicated lotion.
I love this stuff.
Dry skin. Yes, a lot of people use this. It's really readily available, accessible, formulated for dry skins. You can see the ingredients that are questionable highlighted in the lighter green and underlined. So we can go through in a little bit more detail about some key ingredients in here. And one thing also that I noted was where it said, not for prolonged use, which I thought was very strange, which suggests that their safety tests that would have been advised by a toxicologist most likely. And I'm not sure exactly why based off of the ingredients in there, but it's just something to note that they themselves are suggesting that you shouldn't use it for an ongoing amount of time. So we'll dive into some of these ingredients that we've listed out here. I've touched on most of them. So the first one is petroleum, which most people have heard of and are aware of. I mean, essentially, it's a great, skin protectant, occlusive ingredient that helps for moisturizing skin. It prevents, basically, it just creates a barrier over the skin that stops water from evaporating, which is why it's used in so many dry skin products, especially medicated dry skin products and pharmaceutical dry skin products as well. The problem we have with petroleum is that it's from crude oil, which crude oil in of itself is toxic. It contains a lot of volatile organic compounds in the crude oil and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons as well, which we call PAHs, sorry. Now, by the time you do a refining process, the principle is these are no longer present in the final petroleum that you're putting in the skin.
Okay.
There is a level at which we call it the USP grade, which is the US pharmacopoeia grade, that most brands would adhere to confirm that most of those toxic compounds have been refined out. The refining process in of itself uses toxic chemicals as well. So
wow, okay.
it's kind of like it's part of this ecosystem that just generally isn't healthy. It isn't healthy for your body, skin. It isn't healthy for the planet. It isn't healthy for anybody doing the processes either. And then ultimately, we know that the process of refining and taking out crude oil is not good for the environment, as well as then, as we spoke about before, what happens to the ingredients whilst they're going through this process when they're using sort of hexanes and other carcinogens to refine this. The byproducts of that are going ultimately into our water system. So, on aggregate, again, in terms of its whole life cycle, Not a great ingredient, and definitely one where there are better alternatives that are better for your skin and for
Okay.
the planet.
And so petroleum, so I would think that because it's a barrier, you're going to see petroleum mostly when we're talking about health products. I
Yeah.
would think that it's going to be in anything that you need a barrier. So like it's like a first, like I'm thinking of skin lotions, probably makeup. I could be wrong, so correct me if I'm wrong, but maybe some
Um,
makeup products.
It's a little greasy, so there's a lot of lip products maybe that used to use it. But yeah, it can be a little heavy, so you wouldn't necessarily put it on your face so much. There's a
Okay.
some skincare for sure. There's definitely some high end skincare products that use petroleum. Uh,
Okay, so that's interesting. I'm sure you're gonna let us know some alternatives as we go along. But what does worry me too, and you brought it up at the very beginning, is that it says, not for continual use, which I use this stuff every day, and I'm kind of worried now because I'm like, why are they saying that?
yeah, I
So I'm
mean,
kind of curious.
there's definitely some alternative options out there. Petroleum kind of has the monopoly because of the industry it comes from, as we know. The oligarchs and people who already control the oil industry
Hmm.
obviously do a lot of promotion of their own materials and ingredients.
Right.
Becomes kind of like the gold standard to be used across medicine and pharmaceuticals and cosmetics as well. But there are definitely other options that you can use to keep away from this material.
Okay, that's interesting. And so it's good to let people know. So the product that's actually in the ingredient in its form in these products is not too dangerous. But what we're getting at is the process of getting to this is where a lot of the damage to the environment and is happening. It's the because I was really shocked when you broke down how bad it is to process this stuff to get to this product. That's the problem that people I don't think about.
Yeah. I mean, you can, if you trust that the product is refined well enough, then yes, you would then say all of the toxic chemicals that were previously in it are no longer in it. The keyword there is trust. There is a grade that people have to achieve to be able to claim USP grade, but it does still permit a small amount of some of the toxins to put in there, but it's considered to be so negligible that it's not going to do anybody any harm. It should be almost undetectable, but doesn't mean it's completely zero. And as we know, we look at things in a little bit more holistic way. So we don't necessarily want a little bit of poison, even if it's just a little bit. It's still a
Okay.
poison, right? There's no benefit of that poison to your skin. You don't need it. So if you can avoid it, why wouldn't you just avoid it?
I agree. Yeah, and find something better that doesn't have the poison at all in it, which
Exactly. And it's
makes
just
more sense.
such a tainted ingredient. It just comes from such an unethical industry in general that is sort of ruining the world.
Mhm.
It's just it's really an ingredient that on multiple levels I
For sure. That's a show on its own. Is just getting into the petroleum and the damage that it's doing with all the products. That's a show right there.
exactly the products, the wars, the
Yeah.
every everything that this product stands for ultimately for me is tainted, and I'm just like, this is like no.
All right. No, I get it. Yeah. I just think a lot of people don't think about it. Like they when how often do you think about cream that you put on your skin? I never really did until I found your work. And then I kind of looked, and then I was like, wow, okay, what am I putting on my skin? So it's interesting. It
Yeah.
really is.
Okay, so next one, propylene glycol. So this one is also a byproduct of the petroleum industry. So again, kind of tainted with exactly the same problems that we have with the first one. It can contain trace amounts of carcinogens, can also be irritating to the skin, and it does help to enhance the permeability and penetration of other ingredients into the skin. So where we were talking about, what percentage of ingredients get absorbed in the body, it's very much dependent on the modalities that you're using, the other ingredients in your formula. If you have things
Okay.
like propylene glycol, these can help things to penetrate deeper into the skin as well. So, it
I
has
find it fascinating though that says can be irritating to skin, and they're putting it in skin products. It's
a lot of ingredients, on their own will be irritating. And then you mix them in, you create a whole system that you can use to mitigate and reduce some of that irritation by adding other ingredients as well. My personal sort of formulating ethos is generally to try to avoid as many ingredients that have irritation potential in of themselves. That's kind of the principle I use. Sometimes it's unavoidable, and it really just depends on the system. But for sure, like something like propylene glycol that is supposed to be there to help moisturizing, glycerin doesn't have that same irritating potential that propylene glycol does. So I'd rather use glycerin.
okay, that makes sense.
PEGs, polyethylene glycol. So this one you don't necessarily see, as PEGs as one ingredient. You will see examples like polysorbate 60, satirif 21, F, where you see this F denotion. That is where you've got something that is called PEGs, polyethylene glycol, added into a chemical. So these are used for emulsifying, basically mixing your oils and waters together for the most part. So basically, this ingredient, ethylene oxide, is introduced into a system through a process called ethoxylation. The ethylene oxide is carcinogenic. But, sometimes it was good intentions. I would say, like I gave the example here of sodium lauryl sulfate, which is a very harsh cleansing agent. It would become ethoxylated to make it slightly milder and less stripping. But again, when you're looking at the process and what you're using toxic chemicals to do it. And then in the process, you generate something called 1,4-dioxane, which is, again, another carcinogen. So it's one of those things. It's such a common process. It's used for many chemicals. We're finding now that the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, is sort of cracking down on all the industries that are using different PEGs because of the levels of 1,4-dioxane that are ending up in the water systems. Some brands, many brands that, especially brands that are focused on sort of clean and wellness and health, have some limits. And even some of the multinational sort of conglomerate brands also have some limits on what levels of 1,4-dioxane could be present. And then states like California and New York have introduced some limits as well to how much can actually be in your formula. So at the end, we have to do like a calculation and see how much 1,4-dioxane will be present as a trace impurity in the final formula to see if it's going to be acceptable.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Especially that it's that they're monitoring the water for it. That's just a red flag that goes up to me that it must be serious enough that they're monitoring it.
100%, because most of these chemicals get used in products that get washed off. So all the shower gels, all the hair products, shampoos, they all contain PEGs. It's so common across so many different types of formula that, and then not outside of the beauty industry also. So it's something that,
It accumulates. Like we were saying, like when we were talking before we recorded, that when you think of like one individual person using a product that has this, it doesn't seem like a big deal. But when you start thinking of millions of people every day using these products and it's getting washed down the drain, this is the problem. It adds up. This is a cumulative problem.
Totally. And then before that, like I said, when we're making these ingredients, the ingredients that are being used, the ethylene oxide that's being used to do the ethoxylation reaction, the 1,4-dioxane that's being produced, even if we're able to refine it or remove it, where does it go? So we're already creating a toxic environment in general, even before we've even got to the consumers.
Wow. This is really interesting to me. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, this one, disterodimonium chloride, was
sounds horrible.
The name, don't be misled by the name ultimately, but this belongs to a broader category of ingredients called quaternary ammonium salts. It's basically a cleansing agent and emulsion stabilizing agent, and it also has a great feel for the skin. So especially in that cream where it's using a high amount of petroleum, combining it with this ingredient helps to make it feel less greasy, and that's why they've added it in. However, there's always a downside, right? That's the unfortunate part. It can be very toxic to aquatic life. So when this is getting into the water, it's definitely poisoning fish and plants. In of itself, it has some irritating potential to the skin. And I just did a more general awareness again of ingredients that are so commonly used that they start to find them in all sorts of places. So I'm just noting here, like 13 different quaternium ammonium compounds have been found in human breast milk, for example, because they're just so common from food, from products, from just generally chemicals that are around us all the time. So again, just being mindful of like, how do we reduce our overall toxic exposure, and how do I as a formulator reduce that impact on other people? I have to consider, like, do I want to be using these ingredients?
especially when it's showing up in breast milk. Like, it's really fascinates me, Angela, that a lot of these products that we use and we that are getting into our bodies, whatever, however they're getting in there. There's so many different ways. This is one of the most that we're speaking about. Is that it fascinates me, but it worries me because this is something that is, like you said, in the breast milk, and if you have a woman that's pregnant, it's getting passed on to the fetus. Like, is there does that happen? Do these products make their way even into the fetus? Like, does it go that far?
It's highly probable. It's highly probable, and you definitely have to be more mindful of what you use, what you eat, what's around you when you are pregnant, for sure. And then, of
Wow.
course, once you're breastfeeding, you're going to have to be extra careful. And like I said, these are not necessarily all just coming from the beauty industry, but on aggregate, again, when you're trying to live a completely holistic lifestyle, you're going to factor in all of the different exposure areas that you might have, and your beauty exposure might be minimal, but at the end of the day, it's still adding into the other exposures that you're having. So
Very cool. Okay, understood.
okay. EDTA. So this is a chelating agent. Basically, it helps to sort of bind the metal ions in the product. So sodium, calcium, magnesium, zinc. So it helps us with a formulation stability, because sometimes when you're using certain water, those ions can break down your formulation system. It also helps your preservatives to work much better also. Um, but unfortunately, it has the potential to also help other ingredients penetrate into the skin also, so it increases the permeability of the skin. It has poor biodegradability, so it's one of those ingredients that is known to be persistent in the environment. And then also, once it's bound all those heavy metals, it can basically transport them somewhere else, and then it can be dissolved, and those heavy metals will be released in a higher concentration in another place. So that's what it means. It enhances
Oh,
ability and bioavailability of the heavy metals at the end, if it's not disposed of in the correct way. So once you've sort of collected all those heavy metals, you need to actually get rid of them somewhere. You can't just sort of
right.
wash it
That's
down.
this sounds like bad news to me. Like, if it's not disposed of properly, if you're able to gather these chemicals together, right, and then it can disperse it at
Yeah,
another location. That I see problems with that. I mean,
they are
from what I live and
definitely.
I know.
It's again, it's something that it's difficult for anybody to really fully trace exactly the pathway that it's going to take and where exactly it's going to end up. And people do take EDTA as for medicinal reasons, right, to bind heavy metals in the body, and you have to have a good system for sort of removing the heavy metals out, rather than just accumulating them and then letting them have nowhere to.
Oh, so that might be where I've heard of this EDTA. So people that have to kind of do like a detox, or they got to cleanse the body or something, that they'll use a product that has this in it. But
Yeah,
as you're saying, you have to know what you're doing basically to get rid of it.
exactly. So
Interesting.
it's used in many, many, many different products. And then, I think the concerns have always just been just like, hey, how do we watch and see the levels that are accumulating in the environment ultimately?
Okay, this one's interesting. Wow.
Mhm. Okay, so that was the main ingredients that I highlighted from that formula. As I was saying, there are alternatives that don't use petroleum, that don't use a lot of those ingredients. The Weleda skin food is probably one that's really popular. I would say the jar's a little small, but they've got a good formula there. The Organic Bath Company is another company that has a really great body butter as well. That's great for dry skin. Ceramedics is probably the cleanest pharmaceutical type of product that you can find on the market as well. And I think it's fairly easy to find in most sort of health food stores.
Okay.
In a brand called 54 Thrones, they have a product called the Cloud Cream, which is full of ceramides and great ingredients as well, shea butter, that will really help to moisturize and lock in. And then, as I mentioned, I have something for you as well, Rick. I'm going to send you from.
I'm really excited, yeah, because it's fascinating. I've always really interested too in that how you can take these products that are dangerous, like and have an effect on the environment that we just covered, especially with petroleum and some of these other products, and that you can find an alternative. And yeah, I always think you might pay a little more, but you're getting such a better product that is very safe compared to what some of these cheaper ones that are
Exactly.
more readily available. It's a trade off. Like, and are these much more expensive than would you think, than what I'm using? Like,
They probably would be. Yeah, they are significant. I mean, the cost of a petroleum ingredient is like maybe like not even half the cost, maybe a quarter of the cost of some of the other ingredients that you might use to replace it.
Gotcha.
Um,
Okay.
so it's like pennies basically, whereas the other ones. Well, sorry, I'm speaking British. There's like cents versus dollars, or pennies versus pounds. So it makes a big difference, and it's supply and demand to some extent. Like again, they have a monopoly over a certain industry where they're able to produce copious amounts of an ingredient, spread it around to so many different people in so many different places. The cost then becomes really, really low versus a shea butter that's being hand produced by a village in West Africa. The cost is going to be that much more, but the good that you're doing for the world and the planet is infinitely more.
And yeah, that's a great trade-off. I would pay more. I would pay more for a product that I knew is better for me, better for the environment. To me, that's a step in the right direction for sure.
Exactly. All right, shall we dive into the next one?
Yes, sir. Here we go. Bio oil.
Bio oil. I
This
mean,
is interesting. This one.
this is a really popular product, and I mean, what can I say? I've highlighted again the green things: paraffinium liquidum, mineral oils, retinol palmitate, and then a whole bunch of basically allergens that came primarily from the fragrance, from the perfume that's used in there, and then some synthetic colorant also. So let's dive in a little bit deeper.
Sure.
So, mineral oils. Again, similar to petroleum, same issues. Extracted from crude oil. So originally starts off toxic, has to be heavily refined using toxic materials to refine it. And then, comes from the same industry. So there is a USP grade, which is meant to have minimal to virtually undetectable toxic chemicals still left inside it. If you trust, then that's great. There's certainly alternatives that you could use to replace that very easily. Retinol palmitate. So this is a derivative of retinol. Retinols are great for the skin in terms of removing scars. They're great for acne. They have been shown to have help with anti-aging benefits, improving firmness, and reducing wrinkles, etc. So they have so many different great benefits in terms of performance cosmetics, which is why they are well loved. They are generally absorbed by the skin. They do show that they can penetrate beneath the first layer of the skin as well. So they're a derivative of vitamin A, which is when there's too high levels, is known to be toxic to reproductive health. There is a general concern that most people are overexposed to vitamin A. So once you're now adding more of it through your skincare, there's the chance that you're helping to, again, on aggregate, push your exposure over the limits.
That's really interesting. The vitamin A that most people have too much. And if it's in a product, I would never even think of that. Like, is it affecting? Like, I would never think of that. I don't know if other people do, but I wouldn't to think that it's affecting that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as I said, it's a part of the holistic sort of understanding of how you're living your lifestyle, right? This of itself, on its own, in isolation, are you going to die? Probably not. However, on aggregate, are you doing the best thing for your health? Probably not. So it's not considered pregnancy safe in the USA for that reason, because once you have too much vitamin A into the body, it can affect fetal development. And it's banned for kids in Europe, for example, as well. It generally makes the skin a little bit more sensitive to sunlight as well. So if you use this and then go and expose yourself to sunlight, it can make your skin more irritant. And the studies showed it increased the cancer tumors that were forming on mice's skin when after they had been exposed to retinols. So it's that's an animal study. Doesn't always translate directly to humans. But this is where the cautions start to come in, right? So we have to be mindful about how we're using it, because we have similar bodily functions to even
Yeah.
So
It's definitely a red flag. I mean, and it's kind of fascinating that it has so many. You were going to like what some of the positive things why people are using it, but then, as always, there's this balance that there's some negative coming along with it when you
Exactly. This is what, but you have to weigh it up, right? So if you're like, I want to get rid of my wrinkles and this works, and you're willing to expose yourself to something for a period of time with that awareness, but you have to have the awareness of what the molecule and the chemical can do. So
For sure.
okay.
Jeez, that's really interesting.
All right. So I didn't go into the irritants. They're just they can exist in perfumes, in essential oils, and things like that. If you have sensitive skin, you may want to avoid something that has perfumes and lists allergens. But otherwise, you will find them very commonly listed in a lot of products. In the US, in fact, you don't often have to list all your allergens. In the UK and Europe, you do. So
Okay.
just if you have sensitive skin, just be careful with using things with perfume in general.
And is that necessary? Like I was looking at all the ingredients that you just said at the bottom, like all the perfumes
Yeah.
and stuff like. Is that even necessary in these products, or is that strictly just a sales
Oh, it's just
technique?
aesthetics, right? It makes something if something smells nice, people want to use it more. So
Gee, I would like. I mean, I wouldn't care what it smelled like if it worked really well. I mean, maybe because I'm a guy, I don't know. I
yeah,
just don't really put much whatever.
it's polarizing. Some people love fragrance, and fragrance can really make a product, and then other people just can't stand having any fragrance in some things. And so, yeah, I think a lot of brands do use fragrance for the aesthetic because it just helps people. It helps your product be memorable. It's like there's like a psychological effect when you're using the product. You smell the product, it imprints in your mind that much more as a branding. So it's kind of makes it more impactful.
That makes a lot of sense, and there's probably billions of dollars spent on just that area of smell
Oh,
and feel and color.
100%.
Interesting.
So here's some alternatives anyway that are definitely better for the skin. Burt's Bees Mama Bee Oil, Osea Malibu has an amazing body oil. Hatch Mama Belly Oil, which is probably the most equivalent to the retinol bio oil type. A product brand called We the People. They have a great resurfacing serum called Cheat Sheet. A primarily pure body oil, true botanical. So there's a lot of different body oils out there you can use. I should have mentioned in here, maybe you could look out for certain ingredients like rosehip oil and bakuchiol, which are good alternatives to retinols as well.
Interesting. I've heard of True Botanicals. I've heard of that one, but
Yeah.
the other ones I haven't. And if people want to look at these products, Angela, do they just do a Google search with any one of these and
Yeah,
it'll bring it?
you can definitely find it on Google and or some of the main sort of beauty shopping sites, and you
Okay,
can
perfect.
find them on.
Perfect.
Okay, now we're going to get into your shampoos
I
and
love this shampoo, Angela.
I'm so sorry to break your heart. So there's a few ingredients in here that I've touched on, not because they're horrible, but just for awareness, just the educational piece. They're things that people are generally talking about. So I'll dive straight in so we can touch on them. So, and I sort of did the conditioner and shampoo together because there were some similar ingredients across both of them. So the first one I wanted to highlight is your preservative that is used in your shampoo. So it's the methyl chloroisothiazolinone and the
Wow.
methyl isothiazolinone. These are probably, in my opinion, some of the worst preservatives to use in terms of
Oh no.
irritancy. They're highly allergenic. They have organ toxicity, neurotoxicity. They're generally, they're very effective in preserving the product and stopping things from growing because they generally kill life. I don't like those preservatives at all.
I can tell. I'm just like, oh no.
I mean, they're constantly under review. Each time the acceptable level gets reduced. They haven't quite gone as far as banning it just yet, but I'm sure it's probably will happen in Europe first where it gets banned. And it's mainly used in products where you have to rinse it off, because if you have a product that gets left on the skin, it's likely to cause irritation. And that's why it's also banned in any leave-on products and baby products as well, because it's highly, highly irritating.
And is this stuff found in like body washes? Did they put that in?
It's been in body washes. I think a lot of people have moved away from it. Like most modern formulators probably wouldn't go to this as their first choice preservative now. But if you have a formula that you know already works and tried and tested, the way the industry works, sometimes there's just off the shelf formulas that have history and you know they already work, and you can just launch it, and that you're not going to grow any microbes. You're going to pass all your official tests, but there are better options.
Wow. Yeah, like this one. Yeah, this is bad news. This one.
Yeah, I mean, there was some time when people started just claiming paraben free, and then they started moving to this one instead because they managed to claim paraben free, but then they used a worse preservative than parabens.
Jeez, it makes sense. It seems like something we would do.
Yeah.
Put something in worse. Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Your Cocamide MEA was also I think it was in your shampoo as well. So Cocamide MEA was designed to be a milder version of Cocamide DEA, which got banned because it was toxic. So it's generally a surfactant. It helps to thicken products. It helps to boost the foam. So it's part of why you love your formula. But it has some toxic potential. And also the way it's formulated in that particular system, they do use magnesium nitrate. And this ingredient should never be used in anything that has nitrosating potential, because then you form carcinogenic nitrosamines.
Wow.
Used in combination anyway. So again, modern formulators have kind of moved away from this ingredient. It is fairly low cost. It is effective, but it does have these concerns. In of itself, it does irritate skin. You would never use it on its own. You would have to formulate it in such a way that you would minimize that irritation potential. But yeah, again, if you're trying to go for the mildest, most innocuous ingredients, the kindest ingredients overall, you would probably not use this one. The vapor is highly toxic. That's more for the environmental, like in terms of when you're producing it. You wouldn't put it in any aerosol sprays or anything like that. It would be banned in those types of ingredients, just because if you inhale this ingredient, it would be very toxic.
Wow. And you said the one before this, forgive me, I couldn't remember the name, but you said they banned that one and came out with this one. And you think this one's on its way out too?
Yeah. So people started using this instead of parabens. Parabens haven't been banned, but the public became aware of parabens. We'll talk about parabens a little bit later.
Okay.
And, just so that brands could claim paraben free, they would start using something like this, and it's not better than parabens for sure. Okay, so Cocamide MEA and then silicones. So I don't classify silicones as bad in of themselves. There are some considerations to think of. I mean, they're used in your shampoo and in your conditioner because they do have some good conditioning benefits in terms of like the aesthetics of the hair. They very much coat the hair, so they're going to leave a film that helps to reduce any tangles and makes the surface of the hair feel smooth. Are they really doing anything to help repair or nourish the hair? No, but at least from an aesthetics, from a cosmetic perspective, you do get a good performance. So people with colored hair, dry hair can find that silicones can make their hair feel better.
That makes a lot of. That's why I like the conditioner, because it does leave like my hair like shiny and really soft and smooth. And so that would make a lot of sense that when they claim that they're fixing dead ends in that, it's basically probably a product that's high in silicone, and it's kind of like an illusion almost. With
it's like makeup. It's like coating the hair and just sort of so the hair feels good, and so it's very superficial in that sense. Generally, they're not environmentally friendly. Some certain silicones like cyclopentasiloxane and cyclohexasiloxane, they usually have trace amounts of what is called D4, and D4 is carcinogenic. Again, brands have to go through a lot of rigmarole to confirm that it's only in there at trace amounts. But it's again, if you can avoid your exposure, I would. If silicones work for you and it's the only thing that's working for your hair at a particular time, I wouldn't panic. But if you can avoid them, like I don't like them for my hair. They don't do anything for my hair at all. But they do. I know that they can help some people from a cosmetic perspective, right?
Okay, that's good to know. But try to find something. There's better out there, is what you're saying.
When I say better in terms of better for health, wellness, environment, yes. In terms of performance, they have a very unique feel that doesn't exist in nature. So
Okay, that's interesting to note.
yeah, this is why they're yeah, very unique materials. They're not like any oils, they're not like any waters. They just have their own unique properties, which is why they're so popular in beauty products for aesthetic and feel.
Okay, it makes sense why it's so popular then. If it's got that very unique quality.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. Yeah, that's really neat.
Okay, cocamidopropyl betaine is also in your shampoo. Helps to boost the foaming, so it gives you a nice rich lather. Definitely irritation potential. Contact dermatitis has been reported a lot with using this ingredient. It's been blamed for a lot of hair loss problems with people. I don't know if you could directly say this is responsible for the hair loss, but because when somebody's reviewing a formula, because it does have a high sort of irritation potential, this ingredient has kind of been blamed for causing hair loss. And some of the class action lawsuits that brands have been going through have been because of they've cited cocamidopropyl betaine as the reason for the hair loss. I don't say it's bad. I don't strictly say don't ever use it. Again, it's just awareness. It may have some impurities in there that are toxic to the body, and but there are ways to formulate to sort of mitigate some of those downsides.
Well, I'm going to be getting you to formulate me something because I'm a hair farmer, Angela. Like you talking baldness, you got my flag. I'm like waving a red flag, like whoa. Like if it's causing hair loss or has the potential, we have to have a talk.
It's a difficult one to replace because of the properties that it gives to the formula in terms of foaming and lather. So I would say yeah, you can formulate without it, but you can also formulate to sort of reduce its potential to irritate your scalp and skin.
Oh my god, I definitely have to talk to you about this.
Okay. We touched on this group of ingredients before, quaternary ammonium compounds. In the hair care products, they are used as conditioners. It's almost impossible right now to find conditioners that don't use these ingredients. They are the most common, the most widely used conditioning agents across hair care products. And I've listed a few here that were in your products: the polyquaternium 10, polyquaternium 55, the hitramonium methosulfate, the guar hydroxypropyl trimonium chloride, and the cetrimonium chloride. It's really challenging to formulate without these ingredients, and it's really challenging to find products that don't use any one of these ingredients in there. Again, you've got to formulate around it to some extent, try to minimize the use, try to combine it with other ingredients that are better for the skin, because these are very toxic to aquatic life. They're irritating to the skin. Again, as I mentioned before, the quaternium ammonium compounds are so common throughout industry that they're getting into human bodies, they're getting into human breast milk, and so ultimately getting into children. So it's like it's a challenge from a formulator's perspective right now to formulate a conditioner without using any polyquats. But
Jesus.
we're pushing on the raw material manufacturers to come up with more alternatives. There's a few that have been made more recently. We're testing performance to see how they compare, because ultimately, if we make something that's maybe cleaner and better but doesn't work as well as the previous conditioners, nobody's going to buy it. So
No, that makes a lot of sense, and it's really like shocking that once again it comes back to like it's when one person's using it and it's affecting the aquatic wildlife and it's affecting nature. You don't think of it's a big deal one person washing their hair, but you get billions of people around the world using this every day.
yeah,
It really start, and this is only one product, like one ingredient. Start adding up. Like I just hope people start to realize the stacking that is going on and the burden that it's putting on nature
yeah,
to deal with all of this
yeah,
bombardment.
exactly. And ultimately, it comes back to our nature, right? Because it gets into the water systems, if it gets into all food systems, it's there and it comes back into your body and it ends up in your breast milk, ends up in your tissues. So
Jeez.
how do we reduce it? I would say, there is definitely some awareness to try to move away from it, but also because they are the most well-known, most performing ingredients used, most formulators will just defer to using them for sure.
So
Uh,
this is going to be a tricky one to figure out, you think?
yeah, it can be tricky for sure to move away from. But my approach has been just, okay, if I'm going to use, like, say, behydramonium methosulfate, it is plant derived. And then I might mix that with some other more natural conditioning agents, that like slippery elm or aloe vera and things like that have some conditioning properties as well. And in combination, then I can reduce the amount of ingredients I use. I generally avoid polyquaternium 10 and polyquaternium 55 and those types of ingredients as well. But all of them are not equal, shall we say. So we try to
Right.
find the safest ones that you can use and combine it with some other ingredients as well to try to get the best performance.
Yeah, that's cool. A step in the right direction, right? Like looking for things that are similar and are better.
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
All right. So alternatives. So a few brands that really use clean ingredients overall. Again, using that same principle or eliminating some of those ingredients completely. Philip Adams has a great range of hair care products. Carina Organics as well. Pure Haven, their ingredients were really clean in terms of hair care products. In a Sense is a brand I really like, and I personally use some of their products as well. And then Nature of Things, they're pretty expensive, so that but they have some good formulas as well. I can't vouch for how well they're going to work for your hair, but you can have a look. And
It's trial and error. I've tried so many different shampoos, as I'm sure everybody listening and watching has over the years, and some work and some don't. It's
yeah,
just everybody's got their own little preference.
yeah,
So, but I'm willing to try. I'm definitely going to be trying some of these. I will give them a go and let you know.
cool, perfect. All right. So this was another one you brought up, Olay Regenerist. I think you said one of the ladies in your life was a big fan.
Yeah, my mother, oil of Olay. Oh
Yes.
my god.
Or, I was surprised it wasn't as bad as I was expecting it to be in terms of ingredients. I mean, I've highlighted a few here. Isohexadecane, which is a derivative of the petroleum industry again. So just back to that same monopoly on the industry that they have. Dimethicone and dimethiconol, back to the silicone story. They help to produce really beautiful textures, really silky, smoothing feels when you're applying a moisturizer, but they don't really have any real sort of benefits to the skin
Okay.
compared to other moisturizing ingredients. And then the EDTA we already discussed before. Some of the PEG, the polyethylene glycol ethoxylated ingredients that we discussed before. And then it has things like titanium dioxide and mica. Titanium dioxide has been kind of a hot list product at the moment because it recently got banned because it's in Skittles, because it's carcinogenic when you're eating it. In cosmetics, it's balancing, let's say, because it has some benefits in terms of safety compared to some of the other colorants that you might be using. In this particular formula, they've put it in there to give some kind of illusion of your skin looking better, along with the mica.
Wow. Okay.
It's not going to have any real benefits for moisturizing or anti-aging apart from as like visuals, cosmetic. So it's interesting they kind of mix that in there. So it probably works and it probably makes your skin look amazing because it has some kind of colorants in there to kind of improve the skin.
Interesting. And that one product was found in Skittles that got banned.
Yes, exactly. So titanium dioxide has shown some carcinogenic potential when it's consumed. However, you will find a lot of natural sunscreens use titanium dioxide. A lot of makeup products will use titanium dioxide because it's a natural white colorant. There isn't really a good alternative at this point. When
Okay.
it comes to makeup and colorants, I definitely don't eat it. If there's not going to be any reason why you would need to eat it. So sitting on the top of your skin, I am a lot less concerned. Don't inhale it and don't eat it.
Okay, good enough. Don't eat oil of Olay, guys. Girls, I should say.
The one ingredient that we didn't touch on previously was this copolymer, sodium acrylates copolymer. So this is basically a plastic polymer. It's used for the skin feel, but just things to be cautious of, that it can contain sort of residuals and trace impurities, again, of things that are carcinogenic, like methacrylic acid and benzene. Again, brands have to go through a lot of rigmarole to confirm that none of these things are still present, or they should go for a lot of rigmarole to confirm that none of these things are still present. But again, I put it on my avoid list. If I was formulating, I wouldn't put it on like 10 as the worst. I would probably put it more as like a 6 on a
Still
scale.
pretty high.
Yeah. If I can avoid it, I would certainly avoid it. But if it's something that, if you have a system with oil and water and it might be falling apart, something like this helps to hold it together as well as improve the skin feel. So I wouldn't say panic. I would just say, just be aware that these are some of the things that come from using these ingredients. Again, even if it's refined out of the final product, it was created and has gone somewhere.
Exactly, and once again, does not degrade in the environment. We're starting to see a trend here.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the respiratory concern is more when it's a loose powder form. So before you mix it into the system, it's a loose powder. And then, from a manufacturing perspective, somebody else is inhaling it somewhere. Even if they're wearing hazmat and masks and stuff, you're just creating an environment that for somebody else, even if it's not you, is not healthy.
Jeez, yeah, great point. There's people that have to make these products and they have to mix them and that, and there's a risk to them.
Exactly. We have to go through a whole lot of precautions in a factory environment for sure to try to limit toxic exposure. But for me, the best way is to avoid using toxic ingredients.
Makes sense. Yeah, makes sense.
So, some alternatives. Derma E is probably one of the best sort of clean, clinical form brands out there, and they have like Restore Cream, and they have a wide selection of different moisturizers and things that you could actually look at to shift away from Olay. Evolve Organic is another brand. They have a great peptide moisturizer. Living Libations Rose Glow Cream, Primarily Pure have this plumping cream, and Shiva Rose is just a great brand also that does a lot of moisturizers and creams. Again, I kind of done them a little bit in order of price. So Shiva Rose is more on the higher end prestige side, and Derma E is generally pretty affordable and available in most Whole Foods or online.
That's great. I'm so happy that you're giving people alternatives, Angela, to kind of look into and find. And you give a lot of different examples, as you were saying. So, I mean, something should fit everybody's price range.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really cool that you did that. That's awesome. Thank you.
No problem. All right, shall we dive into a few other ingredients? I just wanted
to
just because they're things that are generally sort of talked about a lot. So I thought it would be worth touching on them in our conversation as well. Sodium lauryl sulfate and sodium lauryl sulfate, which most people know to not use, or they believe they shouldn't use it. These are very effective cleansers. They're great foaming, great lather. Sometimes too effective because they can strip your hair, they can strip your skin. I mentioned it before, SLS, the sodium lauryl sulfate, can be super harsh and can be irritating. They ethoxylated the material using the carcinogenic materials to create sodium lauryl sulfate, which is milder, but again has the ethoxylated part, which is not great for your skin environment. So there are various ways in which you would formulate to reduce any irritancy if you were using sodium lauryl sulfate. But mostly if you were trying to create a milder system, you would just stay away from them. Again, sodium lauryl sulfate, you could say is better than sodium lauryl sulfate, but it's just very stripping. So if you have sensitive skin, if you don't need that level of effective cleansing, then no, clean your house with it. Maybe you could clean like your laundry. Like I think Dr. Bronner's has a soap detergent product using sodium lauryl sulfate, and I think it works pretty effectively. But on your skin and hair, you might want to avoid if you want to sort of keep everything intact.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Phthalates. These are ingredients that have, I think, come to people's awareness. You don't often see phthalates listed on any ingredients list. Usually, they are things that have been added into plastics. They've been added to make the plastics softer and make them more durable and bendy. However, sometimes they can leach out of plastics. So if you're using them to hold any types of products, yeah, you may find that phthalates have leached into your products. Then the other place they use is in fragrance. In most fragrances, you don't know what's in a fragrance anyway. So you will find phthalates in there, and some nail polishes as well. Phthalates are essentially the endocrine disruptors, well-known endocrine disruptors. They will affect your hormones. And again, it becomes that aggregate effect of you being exposed to it in so many different ways, through your food, through your cosmetics, through your perfume. And so you don't realize that you're having this compounding effect overall on your health. But the problem is, because you won't see phthalates listed, you have to look more holistically at the brand, at the ethos, avoid fragrance, and look for brands that are conscious of what they're using and are definitely claiming that.
Why are they not putting that? Why are they not having to put this on the ingredient list though? Is it just too much to put on the list, or is there, how are they getting around this?
Well, so essentially, in a fragrance, you don't list what's in your fragrance. Your fragrance is just fragrance. It can be thousands of different types of chemicals, and you don't. Yeah, there's no, because of the privacy. It's kind of like what do you call it when you have the
Like a patent or
confidential
whatever.
information exactly on your fragrance? You don't disclose every ingredient that's in there.
That
Um,
makes a lot of sense because my tattoo ink that I use, I use a really high end tattoo ink, and it doesn't tell you what's in it. They
yeah,
don't. They list a few of the ingredients, but they're not telling you how they're getting the color or
yeah,
anything like that. And I have to. I go by, like you said, I go by the name brand. I go by the brand, the reputation, the backing behind it, like all of it. And they use high end pigments to
yeah.
color the inks, so it makes sense with this with the cosmetics.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're using sort of general, sort of mainstream perfumes and spraying them directly onto your skin, you're probably exposing yourself to phthalates. I always advise people, just don't spray perfume on your skin. Spray it on your clothes. Spray it, on in the air if you can. Like, don't spray it. In fact, maybe not even on the air is not good for your lungs. But don't if you can avoid spraying it directly onto your skin, that will probably be best. But
That makes sense.
there are cleaner fragrances that people are developing now that don't contain them. You can't, with the when it's leaching from the plastics, it's harder to know that that's happening. In Europe, there are some. It is considered in the toxicology report of a product. The toxicologist will look at the packaging, will look at the packaging materials, and assess the likelihood that something could leach, and give you some kind of guidance on it. In America, you wouldn't need to do that, and whether that guidance is accurate, I don't know. It's kind of an opinion,
Like,
sort of.
right, but that's why when you said like people are starting to talk about this more, I was just listening to a show that was talking about this and the plastics and how it's definitely in food products because everything's like basically in plastic now.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if this is I think this is going to become way bigger in the future than people realize. I think that we might have really got ourselves into a bit of a mess with all this plastic.
Yeah. I
I mean,
mean,
that's my opinion. I just really is starting to get an eerie feeling that
yeah. All plastics are not created equal, and in some cases, a plastic may end up being the better option.
okay.
Um, but brands, again, you have to sort of look to the brand's ethos and what kind of considerations they're making and how they've weighed everything up, because plastic might still be the best option for that. And they've made sure the plastic didn't contain any phthalates, or there's no leaching of the plastic, or the plastic is reusable. And so there's various things you can do to try to
Right.
reduce that overall.
That's a good point. Like they can make it where this won't leach out. So
Yeah.
there it's not that's a great point. Like not all plastic. Don't be like, it's all bad, but it's something to keep an eye on. And I also was just before we get off of this product or this what we're speaking about, you were speaking about perfumes and putting it on your clothing and maybe, that's the best way to do it, not on the skin or not even in the air. I'm just thinking about how many people have like these air fresheners all around plugged into their house and they all these different scents, and I'm just like wondering, like, is that an area to look into? Maybe there's pumping this into your air. I mean, I'm just wondering.
Yeah, definitely. There's some clean swaps there that I've found recently to try to find some options of that.
Hmm.
I found a brand recently called Azuna, who seem to have some clean air fresheners for the house and things like that as well.
That's
Yeah. Otherwise,
what was the name? What was the name of that? Azuna?
Azuna, sorry, Azuna.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Otherwise, get a humidifier with like essential oils, and then you're
That I
fine.
was just gonna say that's what I do. I have like it. That's what I do. I just put a drop of that in. And it's amazing. Like
Yeah,
it's real, and it's so much better than the chemical stuff like that you buy at the grocery store or whatever.
exactly. Your house will just be like a spa all day.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, you guys gotta try that if you want. If you somebody that likes air, like your those plug-in Glade plug-ins or whatever they're called, definitely like Angela just said, get put it an essential oil in, and you'll be rocking.
I love it. Okay, PFAs, forever chemicals. I think these have been in the news and media a lot recently. And again, it's kind of difficult to know how to avoid them because they're not listed as, PFAs or forever chemicals on the back of your products. But again, they break down very slowly over time. They're basically very persistent in the environment. They have some endocrine disrupting, so hormone disrupting effects as well, and just basically never go away. We in the beauty industry, they've generally been used in long wear cosmetics, so all those super long wear liquid lipstick formulas, a lot of like loose powders that use ingredients like PTFE. um that's where you'd probably want to avoid that if you want to avoid consuming forever chemicals in your beauty products.
Forever chemicals. I've never heard that term before.
Oh, you'll start to hear it now. It's definitely something that, again, the red flags are up everywhere from the officials through to media and everything else, just sort of raising awareness or fear around them. But again, just to empower yourself, you can avoid it, especially in beauty products. They're not commonly used in like your skincare necessarily, but in makeup products, because when you want something to really last and stay put on the skin, that's where you would find these types of chemicals.
That's good. I hope people are start keeping an eye on that. I think this is important stuff that
Yeah.
people should be looking out for. That like this is so much. This is so interesting to me, Angela. I really mean that. Like I don't know how many people like I keep saying think about the ingredients that they're around every day, and it fascinates me. And in like one shampoo, you look at the ingredient list and it's half the bottle. Like it's just so much goes into it. It fascinates me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work for people to do. I get it. So, I think it's really important to find really simple shortcuts, and by finding brands you like, finding brands that that share that same ethos that you have, and then it makes sure you can take those kind of shortcuts. I think just rather than running in fear or giving up.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe local. Like I have a lot of local soap makers around me that make incredible soaps. Oh my God. They're
Yeah,
so much better than that stuff you buy like at this normal, like the normal products that you think of with soap.
perfect. We mentioned parabens a little bit before. Very effective preservatives from a formulating perspective. You can pass all your tests. You won't grow any microbes. Great. You know exactly how to use them. Used for centuries, decades beforehand. However, um,
There's always a however.
they have been shown to have some endocrine disrupting potential as well. So again, disrupting your hormones. They tend to bioaccumulate, and they've seen some studies that show that they do actually affect collagen production, so it can actually cause your skin to age more. That will probably be at a higher levels than we're using for the most part in most cosmetic products. But again, on aggregate, if you can avoid it, there are alternatives to parabens that have since been developed that we can use. It just a lot of people are aware of parabens. Paraben free has become a very popular claim over the years. And this is essentially why, because people have noted that they do have endocrine disrupting potential.
Okay. And this would be listed at the back of a product, like they'll be on the bottle.
Yes, you'll find
Okay.
things like methyl paraben, propyl paraben, etc.
Okay.
Listed on your products.
Good to know.
All right. So just speaking of preservatives, because it's one of those things that people always, when they hear preservatives, they think bad. They don't want preservatives in their formula, and that's true to some extent because most preservatives, by the nature of how they work, are more irritating. by the nature of how they work, do kill life to some extent, because their job is to stop microbes and bacteria from growing. And they do that in a way that can sometimes mean that there's more potential to irritate the skin.
Okay.
However, when you're developing products that have oils and waters in them, you need preservatives. If you're developing a product that has water in it, you need to have a preservative. Without it, you're going to grow some kind of mold, fungus, bacteria, which would be considerably worse for you as a consumer and a lot worse for you as a brand when you get sued. So
I'm just laughing because I remember when I was a kid, I made like this water art, and I put colored water in, and it was look amazing for like 3 days. And then when you said you're going to start growing stuff, like after like a week, I was growing something in this bottle that I was just like, this is different. Like so I get it. Like it just made me giggle because
yeah,
I grew something in a bottle of water that was creative.
we've all done those kind of science experiments of growing
Oh,
mold.
it was nasty, and I'm like, what am I growing here? So I get why you need some of these products that you to stop that process.
Exactly. So
Makes
I
sense.
mentioned here like a few different preservatives that I like to use in formulations. They work to varying degrees in various different systems. But just so people are aware, there are preservatives that you can consider that have to minimize some of those downsides of preservatives in general, and still get the benefits of protecting your product and not growing the bacteria, etc. Because you just don't want those on your skin ultimately. Like
Okay.
Okay. And then endocrine disruptors we touched on briefly, where we talked about forever chemicals and phthalates. But generally, I've just listed a few different endocrine disruptors that are well known in the industry as well. So things that you just want to avoid: parabens, kojic acid, which is used for brightening the skin, a lot of sunscreen ingredients like benzyl salicylate, ethyl hexylmethoxycinnamate, and octyl methoxycinnamate. They are sunscreen ingredients that have been shown to have endocrine disrupting potentials. Same with the benzophenones. So there's a long list of ingredients that are generally used. If you can avoid using anything that has that endocrine disrupting potential, it's probably just best. I would advise that. Sure, if you talk to a toxicologist, they're going to say the percentage that you have, and there's no causality. You can't directly say that you put this on your skin and it went in and it caused your hormones to disrupt. But again, we look holistically, right? We look bigger
Right.
picture, and we think of beyond even just what's happening to ourselves, and say, okay, do we want any to keep the cycle of these ingredients being used?
Right.
The answer is probably
And
no.
what about some essential oils? Is there something? Is some of those to look out for?
Yeah, I mean, they've shown that some ingredients like lavender have some ingredients in them that have endocrine disrupting potential. It's never been proven that lavender itself will disrupt your hormones, but inside the lavender, if you break down the molecular construct of it, there are some chemicals in there that have that potential. So this is not an anti-synthetic, pro-natural presentation in of its entirety. It is an awareness presentation of, yes, essential oils also can be very irritating to the skin as well. They can contain a lot of known allergens, so they're natural, but they do have some considerations that you
Yeah,
have.
they're powerful. Like that was the thing I learned very quickly. Like one little drop is so powerful.
Yeah,
It's incredible. Like how I'm sure it's a concentration and all. I don't know the terminology, but let me tell you, I can get why it could be an irritant if you put too much on or use too much in anything.
exactly. So just we're raising awareness here, right? In
Hmm.
general for everything. So just to summarize, I was going to say what to look for, just to take those sort of shortcuts, if you like, if you don't want to be spending your life researching ingredients on the internet. Natural, simple ingredients. If you can find them, if you can find a product that works for you that has natural, simple ingredients, the chances are you're going to be good, right? You don't have to you don't have to worry about too many things.
Hmm.
If you can just use coconut oil on your hair, you would, right? But
Yeah,
it may
for
not work.
sure.
But, um, then I say look into the brand, look into the ethos, look at their website. A lot of brands also do a lot of breakdowns of the ingredients used in their formulas these days as well. So then you can get your understanding directly from them, and get some learning from them in terms of how conscious they've been in the formulating process. And then you can use apps and websites like the Good Face app, Inky Beauty or Think Dirty app to do quick scans of formulas, ingredients, etc., to understand what's good and what's bad. And another easy way is to go straight to stores that have already done some vetting for you. Credo, Detox Market, or the local health stores, even Whole Foods, have pre-vetted and already have a standard for the types of products they allow to be sold in their stores. So they've already eliminated a lot of those ingredients that we've just spoken about by banning them, and they won't let brands sell. They won't sell brands that use those ingredients in their stores at all. Credo.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that stores are taking that initiative
Yeah,
to be really aware of what they're even bringing into the store.
exactly.
That's a step in the right direction.
Totally. And it makes your life a lot easier than if you just know if you're shopping at Credo, it's not going to have pegs, it's not going to have, then your life is a lot easier.
Very, very. That's cool that they're doing that.
Yeah. And then to summarize what to avoid, I put fragrance there. If you are concerned because you don't know what's in the fragrance, then for sure you can just avoid ingredients that say fragrance on them. I would generally veer people towards using mineral physical sunscreens rather than the chemical sunscreens. That's a kind of controversial issue, but I think that would be more recommended. Avoid endocrine hormone disrupting ingredients like we discussed and listed out there. Check your preservatives, see what preservatives are being used, pay attention to that. And if you really, really want to avoid any preservatives, then you have to just go with formulas that don't contain any water. Avoid PFAs and, long-lasting makeup claims that usually have something in there that would lend to that. Okay.
And buzzwords, which we covered in the first interview perfectly.
Well, when I say avoid buzzwords, it's kind of difficult because sometimes it's not a buzzword. Sometimes a brand has genuinely been conscious enough to say, right, we're vegan, we're cruelty free, and they're genuine about telling you that this is something they've consciously made sure they've avoided using all these ingredients. You just have to not fall for the buzzword or just take it at face value, so to say, right? So it's difficult to avoid them completely, but just avoid falling for them as a marketing term when they're being used in that way. If you pay attention, you'll probably catch it that somebody's just sort of trying to fool you into believing.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, Angela, and it's good. People have to start becoming a little more proactive in the products that they're buying, right? I mean, you have to kind of look and vet and try different things and really, because once you find a product that covers what we're talking about, then you got that kind of covered, right? So then you don't have to worry about it as much. But there's a little bit of a learning curve. I'm learning. This is definitely a learning curve for me. Especially, I was kind of shocked when I sent you the products that I use. And like I was saying at the beginning, I saw all the yellow highlights. I'm like, oh boy, I was like, this isn't good. I was hoping to see like maybe one thing highlighted, but it just shows you how many things go into a product. It's really interesting.
Totally. I mean, I think ultimately the beauty industry is an industry and it wants to sell people products. It wants you to keep buying products. But as you said, like if you find something that works for you, then you don't have to buy like 10 different options. You don't have to keep re-ideating. You don't have to keep rebuying new stuff. It's more women that are guilty of doing that for sure. We like to buy the latest new thing and keep collecting, keep the consumerism cycle going.
Right.
Which is not bad in of itself, but if you were trying to sort of manage your environment and your exposure in general, then like I said, if beeswax and coconut oil works for you and bicarbonate of soda has so many different uses and these simple little things that you can do, why not just keep it as simple as you can. I think ultimately.
Simple is better. I've always said that. Keep it simple if you can.
If you can. Everyone.
Exactly. But yeah, thank you so much, Angela. This was so cool. Thank you for an amazing presentation and slides. That really, I hope, helps people. They can read the words, they can kind of research them if they want, and just get an idea, and maybe it'll make them more aware to start looking. I know now I look at the back, as I was saying, at the back of everything now. I'm always reading the ingredient list. I'm fascinated by it now just because I want to know what is going into the stuff I'm using. And it's really, I hope people really start at least putting a little bit of attention to that area and just realizing that, maybe don't look at it as you're just one person using a product. As I keep saying, when you think of millions of people using this product, it's going somewhere.
Yeah.
and that's what troubles me in a lot of ways. It's like, okay, like, and the processing of it too, which I learned a lot from you in these products, is how much of the people don't think about manufacturing the product and
Yeah.
how they get to this product. Like, there's this whole process, and seems to be toxicities at every step of the way that you're trying to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, as a consumer and the formulator, it's a consideration because I'm like, I don't want to hazmat myself just because I'm making a lipstick. Right? You know?
Full hazmat suit making lip balm.
Exactly. So if I'm using like simple natural ingredients, I don't have to do that. I don't really, I have a lot less to worry about.
That makes a lot of sense. And is there anywhere that, do you have any websites or anything that people can check out your anything that you want them to see that you're working on, or anything?
I mean, people can get in contact with me. I work mainly behind the scenes, so if you have questions, if anyone wants to develop products, then for sure they can reach out to me. If somebody's developing products and has questions or things they want to ask their manufacturer as well, or maybe you're making stuff at home, I'm happy to help. So they can reach out to me at my email address.
Okay, and I can leave. Is it cool if I like, if anyone wants to get a hold of you, I'll ask them to get a hold of me, and
Yes,
then I can give them your email. Is that cool?
perfect.
All
Totally.
right, cool. Yeah. So if anybody needs to talk to Angela about what we're speaking about, if you're making products and you want to get her expertise and advice, guidance, reach out to me, guys. Email me, and I will get you in touch with Angela, and she can definitely help you, as you can see. So thank you, Angela. This was incredible. I was looking forward to this, and I've learned so much. You really have broke it down, and I can't thank you enough.
No problem at all. I look forward to you trying the alternative petroleum products that I'm going to send you as well.
I will. I'm not going to let people know about them. I'm really excited because now I keep saying, like, I keep seeing that warning, not for, not to, I can't remember how they worded it, but don't use this leg cream all the time. And I use it every day, and I'm like, okay, I need Angela here to help me.
No
Something that's better, and that doesn't, have a warning label on it slapped on it, which is kind of disturbing. I don't know how to put it. Maybe you were saying it might be the menthol, correct? That
Yeah,
might be.
exactly. Something like that, perhaps. And it may be them being overcautious about something, but it's still interesting. Something came up in their toxicological.
It's just funny because it says on the front of the bottle for daily use, and then on the back it's whatever. What do I know about marketing? It's funny. It's just interesting to me. So, anyways, thank you so much, Angela. Once again, I'm going to keep thanking you. I hope to get you back again, and I'm going to have more products. I'm sure more questions, and I would love to have you back because I truly do find this interesting, and I hope other people do, and they start just becoming more conscious of the products and the processes that they're going through to get to their final product. I think it's important.
Holistic vision. That's all we ask for in every area of your life.
I totally agree. And I'm just gonna wrap up the show. Do you just want to stick in the background, Angela, so I can say bye to you? Give me like 2 minutes.
Totally.
All right, perfect. I'll be right back.